welcome back to another tying video here on the channel. Today we're going to be tying up a version of the Suskwa Poacher. Metal eyes on, and the only thing to note so far is how far back they're set from the eye of the shank. So we're going to rig this old school intruder style. All we've got here is a piece of 30-pound test, mono, Maxima in this case. We're going to tie that in here really small. So we're going to create a loop and then tie in, just leaving about 1/16 of an inch of that loop outside. I like to get it tight with a few wraps first, and then I'll come in with some pliers and pull that loop till it's only about 1/16 of an inch, 32nd of an inch. We want that thing really small. And then we're gonna go ahead and wrap it down nice and tight right on top, just like that. Now I'm just gonna make that as big as my rear station, meaning I'm not gonna wrap that down all the way up the shank. Now I find one easy way to get this to stick up is just put the point inside of the point of the mono so that you can use that bend. Then just bend that mono forward so that it sticks up just like that. Now that we have it sticking up, go ahead and put in some wraps behind it, kind of at a diagonal, pulling some thread up under it so it just stays propped up. Now just a quick demonstration of what that's ultimately going to look like is you would have your hook tied on to your tippet. That line would, well, this is backwards. You would tie on the hook last, of course, but through this. So really you'd be putting it in the eye of the hook, in through that. And then this is going to get pulled forward just like that. And the piece of the shank we didn't tie on, we left 1/2 inch there. You're going to run some junction tubing over that so that all you have out the back of the hook, out the back of the ultimate rigging, is this hook freely positioned, but always staying close to the back because of this loop. I'm going to take some Senio's Laser Dub Fluorescent Fuchsia. We're going to throw that into a dubbing loop, and that'll create a dubbing ball at the rear of the fly. Using 6/0 Vetus, by the way. A little bit in head. Don't tie it right on top of that loop because we want to be able to see that loop. In front of that, we're actually going to do a feather prop. So I'm just going to take a piece of fuchsia saddle hackle as well. Feel free to use whatever color you want. And we're going to use about 1 1/4 inch that, tie that in, wrap it up, just pluck off all the fluffy fibers at the bottom. Then I'm just going to train those fibers backwards by pinching them, rubbing up and down. That'll be a great prop for our black marabou. I'm take a nice big black marabou spay style marabou feather. We're just going to pluck off all the fluffy stuff at the bottom, and really just to the point where the spine of that feather is a little bit too thick, to the point where you're not going to wrap that. Now we're going to tie this in at the back right in front of our prop. Feel free to tie it up. I'm just going to tie it up right in front. Marabou's not too bulky. Once you've trained all those fibers, just go ahead and wrap that up right in front of your prop. Put that down with a few wraps. Don't have to go too crazy. Now we've got an awesome hot spot at the bottom of the fly, black marabou coming around it, and I'm going to have some fun with it. I'm going to actually make this like an intruder style Suskwa Poacher, so I'm going to tie in some of this awesome black ostrich I just picked up today. Big intruders, I love when these are nice and long. They can reach all the way from the front of a fly way back 5-6 inches. That's cool. So we don't need to use our best fibers, like these nice 5-6 inch ones, because we know we're only going to want to add about another maybe 1/2 inch behind the marabou with these, so we can just get some that are about that long. Good way to use materials. So any of those from the bottom. I'm going to trim about 8 of these fibers. It's going to take about 4 of those, tie those in right on top. We're just going to do a simple top, bottom, left, right tie in on this. We'll just put about 3 wraps in that. As you tie them in, go in and just pull them apart so that they're sitting all at slightly different angles instead of right on top of each other. I'm going to take some large Vivis holographic tinsel blue. We're going to tie that in, get it ready for some down and back. So work your thread up to right behind the eyes. Then you're going to wrap that down the fly. And once you get to right in front of your prop, go the other way. Next, I'm going to make a really simple composite loop consisting of 1 inch of laser dub. Split that in half so you have 2 of these. Set one aside. And on top of that, we're just going to lay down 1 inch by 2 inches of this speckled gold predator wrap. So this stuff comes on braid, so I just cut off 1 inch of that. That's what I mean by 1 inch by 2 inches. And then we want it to be 2 inches long, so we're going to come down here. Just going to go ahead and cut off 2 inches of that. So you're going to lay that over your dubbing, and you're going to set it off to one side more. Of course, normally I would do that on my desk, but without the other camera, that's the best that I could represent that by. So we're going to lay that down and then keep that open. We're going to put a little bit more in that. We're gonna add some Arctic foxtail. This one's awesome, it's so long. We're just gonna take about half of a pencil's diameter worth. Lay that on top of the predator wrap the same direction. And you're gonna close that off with the dubbing we set aside earlier. Sandwich the predator wrap and the foxtail in between two dubbing mats. A 4-inch dubbing loop. Pick up your composite loop, that's what it should look like. Goes in the dubbing loop. OPST dubbing spinner goes in. Go in with the bodkin, free it up. Carefully just wire brush some of that out, or toothbrush. Just make it a little bit more sparse. Get your fingers wet and just squeeze all that back one direction. Making sure, of course, you left about 3/8 of an inch between where you start wrapping this and the eyes. You're gonna start wrapping this all the way up right in front of itself. And then now give it a good brush. Here's a fun tip. If you brush all this forward, even if we didn't put a dubbing ball here, but we just put a dot of UV resin, just spin that, do it on the other side. Now zap that really quick. Now brush it all back. Check this out. That is gonna sit completely propped up like that without the need of putting a bulky dubbing ball on that fly. So you can actually achieve profile without heft or anything that's gonna soak up water while you're casting. Now you know the deal, we're just gonna pluck the fluff. Feel free to save that and put that in a composite loop or something, spins up great. Work 5 wraps back, spin that up, capture it down with 3, and just start wrapping that up right in front of the prop. Just always pulling back fibers in between, we don't want anything getting caught. All these little things make a big difference on how a fly swims when it's tested. And for flash, we're gonna tie in some blue lateral scale. So we've now got 2 lateral scales and 2 pearl flashaboos. Those are gonna go back as long as the longest ostrich on this fly, all the way to the back. Tie that down lightly. 3, 4 loose wraps. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in and separate the lateral line from the pearl, then offset the pearl, keep the lateral line straight down the fly. Tie those down, and then pull back the fibers facing forward at a slight V towards the top of the fly, and just go in and separate a few of those fibers so that they're spread all across the side. You should have some flash starting up here and ending all the way down here. Going to do the exact same thing on my side. Now instead of that lighter sky blue that's usually used in a Suskwa Poacher, I'm just going to use some dark turquoise. So of course a schlappen feather. Just going to take off all the fluffy stuff at the bottom, tie it down, tie it back, trim it. I use really light thread, which allows me to get smaller bodies and smaller heads on my fly. So this is just, 6/0 for a fly of this caliber. Most people are using 210 denier, which is going to build up a lot of bulk that I just don't want. So you can use tricks like tying things down and back to capture them with light thread instead of just a bunch of times with some heavy thread. I like to kind of just roll schlappen down, trains those fibers instead of sticking up. It'll take some red chenille. Capture that down short enough that there's nothing to clip off. Then work your thread up in front of your eyes. Capture that down. Trim the excess. Give yourselves plenty of room to do a nice, neat whip finish. Let me show you how to rig this thing. Line passes through that eye. Split everything perfectly down the middle. Line passes through that rear loop, like a 2-ply at this point, so we can slide down the line. We're going to thread on a piece of ultra tubing. Thread that on. Now we are going to go ahead and tie our hook on. All we're going to do for this is just tie a loop. It's like you tie a fly to your line. So go ahead and rig that hook up on a loop. And we want that loop to be just slightly shorter than the junction tubing. Now putting it all together, of course, first thing we're going to do is we're going to slide the junction tubing onto the shank. Go ahead and push that up. So that's going to slide up to right behind the mono loop. From this point, we're just going to pull the knot. Now you have your hook positioned at the back of the fly, and it is articulatedly rigged So it's going to be able to swing freely, which means when a fish grabs it, the weight of those dumbbell eyes will have no effect on it, so they won't be able to get leverage to get that hook out. It's one of the coolest reasons to rig a hook that way. So there's our old-fashioned intruder-rigged Suskwa Poacher thing that we created. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more tying videos and swinging videos. I'll see you in the next one.